As the Democratic candidates prepare for tonight's debate, a major issue for many voters is health care, specifically reproductive rights. CBS News reporter Kate Smith joins me now from Charleston to discuss this. So, Kate, we've got the primaries that we're moving into these states that aren't really necessarily supportive of abortion. You've been talking to voters. What are they telling you?
Good afternoon, Rita. So what makes this state so interesting, South Carolina, is that it is a state that is not particularly supportive of abortion rights. So I was speaking to voters that identify themselves as pro-life Democrats this morning. And even though there's been so much celebration of all of the reproductive access that we've seen from the field of Democratic candidates, this group of people, they're very uncomfortable with it. And some of them told me that they might sit out voting for the primaries and the general election in November because this is such an issue to them. And what makes this really important to note is that this is not a small group of people. A recent Pew study found that 20%, nearly 20% of Democrats actually believe that abortion should be illegal. So this is not a group of people that the candidates should be discounting and not one that we should be ignoring.
So it sounds to me when you talk about losing abortion access, is that just not enough to motivate people to get out and come and vote?
Well, that's the bet that Planned Parenthood is making. This election cycle, they're spending a record high amount of money to bring out the vote, to tell people that abortion access is on the line, reproductive health is on the line. So that's certainly the bet that Planned Parenthood is making. And in some of the state contests that we saw in 2019, it would certainly prove that theory. So in Virginia, where Planned Parenthood spent a lot of money, they were able to flip, the House, the Senate, and the governor's seat. And then also they were able to get out a very anti-abortion governor in Kentucky. So you're seeing that Planned Parenthood has success doing that, but the question becomes is how monolith is the party on abortion access? And if it's not as monolith as they're banking on, some of this actually might hurt them in the long run from these people who are not comfortable with abortion but are in the Democratic Party.
How exactly this field of Democratic candidates, how does it compare to years past when you talk about the issue of abortion?
So that's a really interesting question. This morning, I spent some time with, again, some people who identify themselves as pro-life Democrats. And what they told me is that they were comfortable with the idea of safe, legal, and rare. And that was kind of how Democrats viewed abortion up until about 10 years ago. Today, we are very far past that. We are embracing the idea that abortion is health care, that women should have access to it, and that we're acknowledging that it's under siege from many different states who are limiting access to it through regulations, through all-out bans. So what they were telling me is that, 10 years ago, they could live with safe, legal, and rare, but the field that you're seeing today, it's not that, and they're not comfortable with it.
And what are voters saying that they still want to hear about this issue?
So on both sides, actually, voters have told me that they really don't know a lot about how these candidates feel about reproductive rights and abortion access. So on the pro-abortion supporters side, they're understanding that all these candidates want to codify Roe v. Wade. All of these candidates want to, have taxpayer dollars go towards abortion. What we don't know is how any of this happens. We don't know how exactly do you codify Roe. Is it through, Supreme Court nominees? Is it through a congressional action? How exactly are you doing this? And then from the anti-abortion camp, what they want to know is there room for them in the party? You saw Sanders say that to be a Democrat means that you have to be supportive of abortion access. So they want to know, do they even have a place in the party anymore? And what they've also been really curious about is the Hyde Amendment. So that is the federal regulation that bars taxpayer dollars for funding abortion. So they want to know, is there any wiggle room on that? Because, they can get behind candidates on something. They understand the reality of most of these Democrat candidates are going to be supportive of abortion rights. But where is the line? And can it be taxpayer dollars for abortion?
Kate Smith, thank you very much for joining us, Kate.